wooden vessel that is the size of 300. What is 100? How many amot is the width of this? The length of this? 300 amah. They found 150 meters. Is 150 meters a football field? Not football, American. I mean, I'm talking European football. What? How much is a football field? You have to ask someone from Holland. They know, certainly, the best football players in the world. How large is a football field?
1 hectare. 7 meters is 1 hectare, they call it.
Okay, how many meters? Is it 150 meters? Approximately? Okay, then leave this room. We don't want you. Gentlemen, they found on Mount Ararat in Turkey a wooden, massive structure that fits the dimensions that God commanded Noach to build. That, of course, he built over the course of how much time?
40 years?
120 years. The Midrash says 120 years. It gave ample time for the generation to do tshuva. They found
the ark?
They found what they think is the ark. The historians, it's clear to them. And inside, they saw that it's divided into different tiers. Did you buy mezzanine tickets or a loge? What seats were you sitting in then?
Mezzanine.
The mezzanine. You're afraid of the lions down below. I know you, right? I would sit on top. Gentlemen, we've been in there for a year or more. And now the waters have resided. The Yonah, the dove, has come in with an alei zayit, a leaf of an olive tree. Noach already celebrated his 601st birthday. He's 601. It's already 11 months after the beginning of the rain. Everything is dry outside. Noach removes the cover or the door to the teva. And I'm asking all of you right now, after 12 months and 10 days, right now, how are you, Mr. Shem? How are you, Mr. Cham? Mr. Yafet? Are you Yafet's wife? You're Cham's wife? You're Shem's wife? What's going on in your mind? What do you feel? You're about to leave.
Scared.
You're scared. We'll get to you in a second. You can explain why. How are you feeling after being in there for a year and 10 days or so? How do you feel?
Oh, yes, relieved.
Relieved. David, how do you feel?
Relieved. Yeah,
Relieved.
Like happy to go outside.
Relieved and happy. Mr. Thomas?
Happy to touch the ground.
Happy to touch the ground. Joshua, you're a special thinker.
Excited.
You're excited. And you, Michal?
I can say I'm happy the lockdown is over.
You're happy the lockdown is over. I understand your happiness and I understand your excitement, relieved. Why are you afraid?
I was told before, the whole world's going to be new. So I have no idea what I'm going to be walking out into.
Mr. Brandt, before you walked in and you turned around, what did you see?
Before I walked in to
The teva, yes.
Imagine,
what do you think you saw? No. When you walked in, there was no rain yet.
animals?
What else did you see?
Birds.
Birds, animals. What else did you see?
Civilization,
You saw civilization, which includes
buildings, cities.
people, fields, vegetation.
Yeah.
You saw the grocery store. You've been buying milk for the last few years. Now you're opening the door. What are you going to see?
Barren land. Maybe.
Barren land. What else?
Desolation.
Desolation. What else?
Puddles.
Puddles. No, we think that the puddles are gone already, as it says in verse 13. Charvu hamayim me'al haaretz. Charvu hamayim, it's all dry. It's all dried up. Charvu hamayim. Gentlemen, could someone be afraid that when he opens up, he's not going to believe what he's going to see? He's looking at, I forget which word you use, but we can add, he's facing devastation, isn't he? He's facing destruction. Okay? Could you have tzipia, anticipation? You're anticipating. Simcha, you mentioned. What about rikshei hodaya? You're full of thanks. Some of you said it, but in a different word. You're relieved, right? Okay, so relieving is being one thing. Hodaya, to give thanks to God, we're out of here. I say that often when I think about the close downs in COVID times, Ken. Ken, it was a very difficult time for students in Machon Meir, although we were one of the few places in the country that students were living here, learning here without rabbis, except for Zoom, eating here, praying with a minyan. You know, the entire country was like praying without a minyan for quite a while, right? And I would ask my students, would you please put your cell phone by the Chazan's where he's standing so I can hear the minyan and I can answer Kaddish or Kedusha or something like that, according to some opinions. One of the few places. Do you know that our students had the Seder over here? There was no one to go for a Seder. They put up wardrobes, they put up costumes here, they put up a lot of things. Oh, thank you. I was looking for some water. Tizke l'mayim. Ele mitzvot. Thank you so much. So, it was an amazing thing. Gentlemen, here it is. You're the survivors. If you want, you're the survivors. Shem, Cham, Yafet, and Noach and their wives. And you've been in a close-up. What did you call, what's the term you called? Lockdown. Inside one ark. And here are representatives of civilization. Men, women, some kids maybe, and every species, every being of wildlife, animals, birds. And now you know that everything is dry and you're about to leave. And are you pushing? Sometimes when the plane is taxiing to get to the place, to the Sharvul, people start pushing to get off the bus, get off the plane, this and that. Yes? Are you pushing to get off? Is everyone pushing? Look again with me what we read 10 minutes ago in verse 15. Vayidaber Elokim el Noach lemor tzei min hateva. Would you please tell me your good Ulpan skills? Tzei. What tense is that? Command. Tzei. Get out of there. Excusez-moi. You don't think there was no anxiety to get out to leave? Why isn't Noach and everyone else leaving? Why does Noach require a command? Now, before we answer the question, the feelings that you all shared are not mentioned in the Torah. Let's be fair. We're trying to imagine, to think what's going on in their hearts, in their minds. It sounds logical so far. And we're going to talk about the fear in a moment. But here, Noach gets a command to leave. Why? Why does he just leave by himself?
He needs the mission of Hashem anyways.
He's doing a mission of God. He only entered into the Teva when God gave him a command. He says, well, he thought maybe I'm going to be a little reserved. We're not going to leave until God does the same thing that he did going in. Just like Chazal say this point, just like he only went in by command of God, so too he's only coming out. But I could understand that he's full of maybe fear that we didn't put down, or we did put it down. On the left-hand side, Regashot Me'uravot, mixed feelings. You're Jewish, aren't you? Jews worry a lot sometimes too much, am I right? What is one of your genuine worries leaving the ark? Let's now talk about not negativity, but let's be sincere. You have any worries?
Maybe there won't be food.
Excellent. Stop there. Where are we going to get food from? What happened? One second. We until now, were there any meat restaurants in Noach's world? Or just pizza shops?
No, only pizza shops.
Were there any meat restaurants during Noach's time in civilization? Yes or no? Why not?
Because just after the flood, they got commanded to
Very good. Until now, man was only allowed to eat from?
vegetables.
We saw that in Bereshit. So the genuine worry that Menachem Brand shares with us, a fear of do we have food or not? Another worry. Another worry. Huh? Another worry. Do you have another worry? How many people living in the world now? Noach, 3 children, and four wives altogether. 8 people, let's just say. Marital relations were forbidden for this entire year plus. 8 people alive. What's your worry? What's your concern?
They're gonna grow. They're gonna.
Will we be able to grow? What's your problem? What are you afraid of? Why? Why would there be a fear? Who's going to be let out of the ark together with Noach and his family?
The animals.
And what about them? How many are they? A lot. And therefore, what could be your fear?
They also get hungry and
They're going to get hungry also. What do you tell an ape or rhinoceros? Please don't eat me.
Were they eating each other before?
Animals were, but there are those that don't, and right now they have no food. What happens when a lion gets a little jittery? He has no food. He's going to hunt you.
Yes.
So there's a fear of, will we be able to overcome the wildlife? Fear number 1, you said, no vegetation exists. How will we have food? Number 2, can we overcome the animals? Is it worth to bring children into the world? They're going to be killed. Right? Any other worries that you have? If there's limited amount of food and we're 8 people, what might just happen?
Fight each other.
They might fight one another. What are we going to do to prevent that? All these questions, as I learned from my dear father-in-law, Rabbi Horowitz, are not written here in the Torah as well. But in a moment, when we get to that section, we read until a certain section, we might be able to see solutions that Hashem is providing that will alleviate these genuine concerns and genuine worries. Let's go according to the order of the psukim. Again, we read, but I'm going to read it again. Vaydaber Elohim al Noach lemor, verse 16. Tzei min hateva, ata v'ishtecha uvanecha unshei vanecha itach, all of you. Who else? Kol hachaya asher itacha mikol basar ba'of u'va'beima v'chol haremes u'romes el haaretz hayitzei itach v'sharetzu va'aretz ufaru v'ravu al haaretz. On the one hand, there's a command here. You're going to swarm, you're going to develop. There's a command to develop in the land. Noach does not ask any questions whatsoever. What does he do? Vayetze Noach uvanav v'ishto. You see that he's obedient. He doesn't play around. He's obedient. Now, if we stop here and ask ourselves, for the 120 years that Noach was constructing the Teva with his family and others, was he able to bring civilization closer to the morals and values of God? Yes or no? No. Let's see, does he have spiritual aspirations coming out of the Teva? Does he want to help build the world culturally according to the values of God? Let's continue. Everyone leaves. Kol hachaya, verse 19. Kol haremes v'cholov, kol romes al haaretz lemishbechotehem. They're going out in order according to their species. Yatzu min hateva. Fantastic. What does Noach do first that the Torah tells us? Pasuk Kaf. Vayiven Noach mizbeach ladunai, vayikach mikol habeima toa, mikol ha'of hator, vayal olot b'mizbeach. Noach is in the construction business. What is the first structure built in the new modern world following the flood? What is being built? A mizbeach. Is it clear to us that Noach is revealing that he wants to continue serving God? What does he do on this mizbeach? By the way, he builds the mizbeach la Hashem. What the prefix lamid here? What does it serve?
To Hashem. For Hashem.
For the purpose of God. In other words, he's building it. Every stone that he takes, everything that he adds, sand or dirt or cement, and he puts it together, it's all for a purpose. He's not just building something randomly without his heart and without his mind. He's connecting his heart to his mind and he's building it for a purpose, a divine purpose. And what does he do on this mizbeach? By the way, Noach is building. I assume that his kids are helping. But he's the foreman, is that the word? He's supervisor. So therefore it's under his name. How do you feel? You're the children of Noach. You're helping whatever. What's going on in your hearts as you sing? The first building, first construction in the new world is a mizbeach. How do you feel? What do you think is going on in your hearts that the Torah does not share with us? Thank you again, David, for the water.
They're confused, maybe?
Confused? Why would they be confused?
Like they're worrying about where to get food, where to get.
Okay, maybe. What else? But you're looking at the building right now. What do you sense? What do you feel? Awe of God, fear of God. What else?
Feeling good.
Feel good. Maybe excitement is accompanying the building here. Wow, we're back in the world. We're building a mizbech for the sake of God. We want to give or express our hodaya, our thanks to God. And what type of korban, specific korban does he bring? What is it called? Olah. Who remembers learning the book of Vayikra, maybe elsewhere? What is the designation of an olah offering? First of all, the word olah comes from the word rising. What else is contained in the olah matters?
It's a voluntary offering.
It's a what?
Voluntary offering.
There's also the tamid offering that Am Yisrael brings through the konim is an obligatory offering. There's a volunteer olah offering. There's a compulsory offering. What else is about an olah? Yes, Menachem. Yes, David. What's special about an olah offering?
For Thanksgiving.
It's for Thanksgiving. You're right. We think it's for Thanksgiving. But what else is included in olah?
It has like the spice, not spice.
It's not a shlamim. What?
What's the word? The frankincense? That's the word?
No, not necessarily. Livona. No, not necessarily. You're right that it could be, that this could be a todah offering. But what's unique about an olah? Oh, it's completely consumed on top of the mizbeach. You don't get any piece of the action. You don't get any parts. So what is this expressing? Not only thanks, but total submission. Total submission. You're not getting anything out of it. You're not getting a physical or material benefit. You're not getting a part of the offering to eat. That would be in the shlamim. It's called a shlamim, my peace offering, right? So we see here that there could be Aleph, the first construction we're summarizing is a mizbeach. Number 2, he's bringing olot offering, which is submission and thanks. And we could assume, although it's not written, that people are excited about that. Yes, Dor Moshe?
It says that he burned all the clean animals.
It doesn't say that. It says he took mikol abemat. It doesn't say he took kol. Oh, I'm happy. See how exact and precise the letters are. He asked a very good question, Dor Moshe. He thought that he took all of the animals, but it says vaikach mikol. From each type, he took 1 or 2, whatever, in order to have others remain, so that the species remains in existence and not extinct. Right? Okay. Now something very unusual happens. Are your nostrils clear? Can you Pasuk Kaf Aleph, can you tell me a little about God's nose? Vayarach Hashem et reach hanichoach. Vayarach Hashem et reach hanichoach. What does that mean? And God scented or smelled the pleasant scent of the korban? Do you know what I know? This is never stated in the Torah once, not even once. It's not stated in the Torah. What does it mean that God sensed? Let's use what you said yesterday. Dibrat Torah b'lashon bnei Adam. The Torah speaks in the language of men to bring ideas which could be abstract, so philosophical, so deep that we cannot understand it. What value, what understanding do we have? Hashem is what? Beautiful. Rav Sadia Gaon says exactly that. Kibel Hashem et korban aratzoi. Wow. You know? Good work, Noach. Good work. In other words, the objective, the purpose of the korban is to get close to God. Noach reached the ultimate objective of closeness to God through this korban. And like we said before, my father brings it, never ever is this term stated in the Chumash. So, wow. The only place in the Torah that the objective of the korban was accepted, ascertained, and that's written. Number 2, who accepted the korban?
Hashem.
Which name of God is written here, please?
The mercy.
Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, exactly. You see it? Not Elokim, which is Midat Hadin, the attribute of din, but here, the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei name, which is mercy. This marks the first time since the flood, the usage of this name of God. This name of God. And therefore, there are those that say that by usage of building the Mizbeach and bringing the Korban and reaching the ultimate objective, this work of Noach, this Avodat Hashem of Noach, is turning the Midah of Din of God into the Midah of Rachamim. Exactly. Amazing, huh? Amazing. Shall we go on in Pasuk Kafal of 21? Vayomer Hashem el libo. Very interesting statement. Vayomer Hashem el libo. To his heart, God is speaking as if, and not speaking to Noach. Here's a declaration, here's a promise. Lo osif likalel od et ha'adama bavur adam. There's not going to be any more cursing the ground, the earth. Let's add the missing words, like there was in the Mabul. Why? Ki yetzer lev ha'adam ra min ne'urav. Huh? Yetzer lev ha'adam ra min ne'urav. We're leaving that alone for a moment. I don't understand what's going on here. And then it says a further promise. The same word, lo osif v'lo osif. Do you notice that? The same term is used twice. Do you see that? The Talmud asks, why is it used twice? Answer, to declare that this is a shavuah, a promise of God. V'lo osif od lahakot et kol chai kasher asiti. So here we have an understanding, an oath of God, that he will never bring a flood unto the world like it was here. That's what it really means. He could bring typhoons, hurricanes, what is it called? Tsunamis? What are they called? Tsunamis, terrible storms. There could be terrible damage, loss of lives. But a mabul that will cause utter destruction to the world will never happen. But what we don't understand, perhaps, what is the connection between this and that God says that it's because Yetzer Lev Adam Ra Min Urav. What is Ra Min Urav? And what Yetzer are we talking about here? What Yetzer, what inclination are we talking about here? Yetzer Hara. When does the Yetzer Hara step into the life of a a human being, especially a Jew, already minu urav, when he's a youngster, when he's born. Therefore, the Yetzer Hara until now only came into the world when a person became of an age of commandment, like 13. Here it says, no, there's a new start. There's going to be Yetzer Hara already in contact with you and your life, already at the young age when you're a youngster. Therefore, let's explain this idea that I read by my father-in-law. Anyone here ever a child? You were a child once? Oh, nice. So I'll address you. Is it true that you were a child and someone gave you chocolate and your friend came over and asked you for some chocolate that you said nothing doing, man? Was that you?
I didn't say anything to him.
Tom, I think you don't have to admit to the fact.
Well,
Excuse me.
Chocolate.
What?
I was not a sweets fan.
Oh, you're supposed to play with me.
Oh, okay.
Are you the one that didn't part with your chocolate? I thought so, yeah. And when you had other goodies, potato chips and pretzel, you didn't part with it, did you? I don't know if you ever met a child like this, but children are usually selfish. Children, and that's what they are supposed to be, thinking about themselves and not about others. That could be one of the explanations that Ra minu urav, that we're selfish. We think about ourselves, we're egoistic. If and when we mature, we become of age, we begin to understand that life is not just accepting, but life is accepting in order to part with what we have. You have a talent, you can help give it to others. You have a certain energy, you can share with others. You have a certain element of chesed that you know how to work with certain people, you give it to others. You receive in order to give. That is the development, the purposeful development of mankind. Okay? When a person leaves his young stage of ages and not just thinking himself of becoming anochi, I, then he develops with his maturity, and then he can be like the Tzelem Elokim. He can be like the divine image. What is Hashem doing all the time? He's giving him himself. How do we liken ourselves to God? The Talmud says we adapt, we acquire his attributes. Mahu rachum, afata rachum. Mahu chanun, afata chanun. Okay? And we have to learn through the eyes, the prism of how Chazal teach us when to be using rachamim, when to be using chen v'chesed, and so on and so forth. Therefore, these korbanot that turn midat hadin into midat harachamim, Hashem knows that, look, a person may not mature. He may use his Yetzer Hara all the time, even becoming later and be selfish to himself. You know what? I'm not going to hold mankind responsible again. I'm going to give them a chance to do tshuva all the time. I will never, ever erase this matter. And this shows us what's the kesher, the relationship here between the Yetzer Hara that we can develop into using it for good things, and the oath of God that he will not bring destruction here to the world. Let's just say, how is it? Do you notice regarding the seasons of the calendar year? Pasuk 22 that you read, was the last pasuk. How many seasons do you read here? Zera, Katsir, Kor, Chom, Kayitz, V'choref. We can say here there are about 6 seasons, according to the Torah, yes? Do you see how it's written one in its opposite? There's a time for Zera, there's a time for sowing, and there's a time for Katsir, harvesting. There's a time for Kor, which is, and there's a time for Chom. There's Kayitz v'choref. What's the difference between Kayitz and Chom?
Kayitz is zman, Chom is
But they're all, no, but I'm saying Chazal interpret this is that each of these 6 are seasons, and each are comprised of 2 months of time. 6 times 2 is 12 months. What will be the difference between Kayitz and Chom? The beginning of the summer is Chom. Kayitz is the end of the summer. The Talmud says that the end of the summer is even hotter than the summer. And it's referring to late August and September. Okay? Sometimes we often have a hot streak right between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur times, and sometimes it's a tough Yom Kippur when it's very hot here. Kayetz comes from the word kates. Do you know a parsha in the Torah called Miketz? Which chumash is it in? Bereshit. And what does kates mean? End. So kates, kayetz, comes from the word end. It also comes from the word when we take the te'inim, one of the 7 fruits of the land of Israel, the figs, and we dry them. So the work of drying the figs are called the kates or kaitzei te'inim. The figs are picked, one of the unique fruit trees of the land of Israel. I don't know if you know it, but it's one of the few fruits that as the tree grows and grows, the fruits become more and more ripe at different times. The fig tree. You can have ripened figs on this side of the tree today, and in a month later you have ripened figs on the other side of the tree. It's something very, very special. Nonetheless, you see this gentleman? Let's just say that Menachem is wearing a sweater. Mr. Brent is wearing a sweater. He's getting ready for the stav, the autumn, which is when the weather's changing. Do you know what he did to get that sweater? He went to a ram. He sheared the animal. He dyed the wool. He brought it to a merchant, and they sewed it for him. This gentleman, and each and every one of us, as the seasons change, all of us are going to be very busy looking to how to adapt, how to meet up with the new weather, the new climate. We're going to be looking for solutions in clothing, in housing, and in working, and so on and so forth. God says, I'm not going to stop at all these 6 seasons. What will this cause man to do? To take out and to be out there taking initiatives, looking how to solve matters as the weather changes, like we just said in all fields. If man's going to be busy solving matters for his life for the 6 seasons, he's not going to have a chance to sin. Okay? We're hoping. That's the hope. And therefore, when a person has this cumbersome work in front of him, he's bothered, he's going to be looking for solutions in life. And from a certain standpoint, the Mefarshim explain here, that could stop spiritual degradation. It could stop a spiritual decline. But that's not enough. In order to really get closer to God, we have to go in the direction that Noach is going. Building a mizbeach. Building a mizbeach is probably a result of a lot of chinuch, a lot of education. So it's not just that you're occupied in building things and looking for solutions. We need maybe years and years of education, years and years of understanding what these values are about, how it's done and why it's done, and so on and so forth. What we need really is hard work. Avodat Hashem me'umetzet, a lot of hard work to serve God, and that will assure that mankind will not sink in the life that's just comfort and the life that's just being idle. The opposite. Don't be idle, be busy, and look how to serve Hashem as part of your life being busy. That could be the solution here. But let's now get to the worries, the genuine worries that we had. And let's see if Hashem now in the new chapter, Perek Tet, is there or not an answer to the foreseen difficulties that mankind, you said is 8 persons living alive here, how will they deal? We mentioned more or less 4 problems. Let's go to the first problem. How are we gonna get food here? Or should we bring children into the world? Isn't there fear that the animals will be overtaking us? Look at Perek Tet, Pasuk Aleph. Let's start reading the verses. David Hayes, begin reading. Though you don't have it yet, Thomas, Perek Tet, Pasuk Aleph, read it. There are chumashim on the table. You're allowed to take it. It's for you. Oh, here's an answer. You were thinking maybe we shouldn't bring children into the world. We're overnumbered by the what?
Animals.
By the animals. But look, if God commanded before when he came out of the ark, he said, Shartzu, swarm, it was in a command form. What's different here? It's different than a command form. It opens up with what? Vayivarach Elokim. This is not just a command, it's a It's a bracha. You're going to be successful. I'm promising you. Vayivarach Elokim et Noach et banav ve'elam pru urvu milut haaretz. In other words, don't be afraid that you're only 8 persons in mankind and you know how you're going to overcome all these obstacles and you're going to get a bracha. You're going to get a bracha. Yeah, you're going to have a high rate of fertility. The birth will come well. You'll be able to raise children. It's a bracha. It's a blessing from God. Blessing number 2, solution number 2. B'vakasha, Mr. Brandt, umora achem.
Umora achim ve'hitchem Adonai Yehiyeh al kol chayat haaretz ve'al kol of hashamayim v'chol asher tirmos ha'adama u'v'chol degei hayam ve'yadechem nitnu.
Very good. You had a fear that the animals are going to scratch you to death, kill you. No. I'm going to instill mora v'chitchem. Mora is fear and chet is like tremendous fear. Okay? So that they don't attack you. So solution number 2 is that you don't have to be fearful of all these animals. They're going to be afraid of you. By the way, some of you talked about relief. Noshmim lerevacha. What is part of the relief accounting to? What was Noach busy doing a year plus in the Teva?
The animals, feeding them.
It's feeding the animals. Can you imagine his long inventory list? Did I feed the squirrels this morning? Or did I skip over them because I was afraid of the roaring? Did I feed the lions, the tigers, the rhinoceros, the snakes, the elephants? Is that a little work or a lot of work? Have you worked in a zoo before? Did you work in the National Italian Zoo before? Yeah, well, you can ask Mr. Brent, he'll probably tell you worked in the zoo. Well, let's just say, I can imagine how much work that is during the day. The famous Midrash talks about Noach that he was a little late and he got bit by one of the lions. So right now, this work that he's been doing with devotion, he's the zookeeper, he's now relief. He doesn't have to take care of them. But he's afraid, doesn't know, will they attack him or not on the dry land? Answer, no, they're going to be fearful of you. What do you want to say? You had a question?
I did.
Yes.
Was the food that he was providing them, like they say, so I've heard that in Shemaim, a lot of the earthly pleasures we know exist, but without the negatives, so we can eat, but not have to make waste.
I'm not aware of a midrash. It's not listed in the Torah whatsoever. It's not listed in the Torah. It could be a midrash. I know. Does anyone read a midrash of this sort? The food was, you're likening the food to the man. The divine food that came down, that supported the Jewish people for 40 years, was pure caloric energy that went into the body, and there was no waste products whatsoever. So you can imagine how much we saved on toilet paper costs. You're joking, huh? We saved 40 years. Go ahead.
Also, were there, I guess there were insects on there too. Okay.
There was less costs for food, keeping them going. They ate of whatever fell down onto the floor. They're very, very, again. Gentlemen, so we have a less of a worry, no fear. Now what about food? You come onto land, there's everything's devastated, there's no vegetation. Pasuk Gimel. Go ahead, read it. Dor Moshe Kol Remes.
כל רמס אשר הוא חי לכם יהיה לאוכלה, כי ירק כסב נתתי לכם מכל.
Okay. Rashi says, Lachem yeh lochla. For you, you can eat it. Meaning, I didn't allow Adam Arishon to eat flesh, to eat meat, only Asem, only the vegetation. But now, you're going to be able to eat. So until Noach and his family can sow, plant, and raise vegetation, they'll be able to eat and benefit from any meat matter. Are there laws of kashrut available?
I'll say, like, there's no, they know how to shech.
Oh, we don't have to shech. Is that a problem? So how are we going to overcome? Thomas? He raises a question to him. We don't know how to do slaughtering. David Hayes, you have an answer?
We are allowed to eat without water.
Explain why.
Because we didn't receive the instruction on how to slaughter.
Because?
We didn't receive it, the mitzvah.
Until when?
Until
Sinai. Very simple. Right now, we're going to learn that there are 7 Noachite laws, which makes all of mankind common until we get the Torah. Okay? And therefore, one of the 7 is not shchita. What?
Not being cruel with animals?
No, Tzar B'Alei is not one of the 7. But the fact is, we don't have to do ritual slaughtering because it's not given only when until Sinai. Okay. So here we see Aleph. If we summarize, Shakoch. If we summarize God's solution, that there be no worries. Number 1, pru urvu, multiplying. Number 2, not having fear of animals. Number 3, permission to eat the meat of animals.
Not having fear of animals?
Right? Because they're going to have fear of us.
Oh, these are the blessings.
All these are blessings which seem to be solutions to genuine concerns of people, of these 8 people leaving the ark, that they're afraid that they might be attacked by animals. No, they're going to have fear of you. And number 4, what about people competing for the little food? What warning? So we get to Pasuk Dalid. Tell me how verses 4 and 5 solve a problem that we will not attack one another. Ach basar benafsho damo lo tochelo. The number 1, no eating blood. What about number 5, Pasuk 5? V'achet dimchem lenafshotechem edrosh miyad kolchai edroshenu umiyad ha'adam miyad ish achiv edrosh et nefesh adam. And in verse 6, shofech dam adam b'adam damo yishofech ki b'tzelem elokim asat adam. What's itemized here? What is outlawed? Killing. Beautiful. No killing one another. If you kill one another, what will be the penalty? You're going to die. Either I will take care of it, or you're going to set up a court. Okay? So Chazal learned that Bnei Noach, from these psukim, that the members of Noach, they are what? Obligated to establish a court system. Okay? You can smile to Srulik when he walks in. It's okay. We allow it. Okay? And therefore, from here, there's not going to be, don't worry. Thomas was worried that, David Hayes and me might punch one another, competing for the food that's on the ground there. We have to be very careful. I know you give it to him. Thank you. You're so sweet. In any event, God forbid, we don't have to have fear that, God forbid, we might take away the life of someone because we are prohibited to cause a loss of life. What we can say here, in summary, that these are words of encouragement by God, as I read here from my dear father, Rabbi Horowitz. We have words of encouragement to Noach and his families, that they have a solution to the difficulties that are going to be, that they're anticipating to have right now in life to mankind. So on the one hand, we may have had mixed feelings, rigashot muravot. On the other hand, tziduk adin, we're accepting the law. This is the situation. We're now going to face devastation. Open up the ark, go out, nothing there. Devastation, destruction, nothing. No animals, no wildlife, no vegetation, no nothing. So we're basically accepting the din. What was for a year and more. So right now, the world requires a lot of efforts in the area of tilling the land, cultivating the land, of bringing children into the world. Who is going to guarantee that it's going to work? A bracha, like you explained. Pru urvu, fruitful multiply, was given here as not only a command, but also as a bracha. And how will mankind live without vegetation? We saw the solution that they'll be able to eat meat, but at the same time, they're not allowed to kill one another. On all these suspicions, we see that God is encouraging mankind to take care of these matters. I want to, for the short time we have left, treat, although shortly it's not the proper thing, but read please with me from verses 8, 9, 10, and 11, and we come to, you tell me, here in chapter 9, verses 9, 10, 11, the next section. What is the subject talking about? After all these words of encouragement, God is now revealing his decision to Noach. Although we did see a shavua, an oath, in the last week, in this last section, but what does this oath turn into now in this section? What is the cup? What word is repetitive here, time after time?
It's a Brit.
A Brit. Let's see where you spotted the word Brit. Verse 9, Vani, and I, Hineni mekim et briti etchem. I'm going to establish my Brit with you. There are some people, mistakenly think the word Brit means a circumcision. But the word Brit does or does not mean circumcision.
His covenant.
Okay, very good. So we're gonna explain. There's a Brit for Eretz Yisrael. There's a Brit for circumcision, and there's a Brit here that God will never bring a Mabul, a flood, onto the world that will kill all of civilization. So as we see, the word Brit appears in verse 9. Again, appears in verse Yud Aleph, Akimoti et briti etchem, I will establish my Brit with you. As it says, Velo yikaret kol basar od mimei mabul. Okay, no flesh, no living people will be destroyed further from the waters of the Mabul, and there will never be another Mabul. And then God says, have a sign for the Brit. Vayomer Elokim, verse 12, Zot ot Brit. This is the sign. I'm giving you a sign of the Brit. And what is it?
Rainbow.
Kashti, Keshet. Kashti. My Keshet. So let's try to first explain that if God made he swore in an oath that he will not bring it, why is it formulated here as a Brit? God is establishing the covenant, you called it, a Brit with Noach and a Brit with his children. Now, is a Brit, let's say Michael, Aryeh, and I write a written agreement, let's say of employment, of kindness, of support, and we, both sides, sign the agreement. Okay? What's special about this agreement? Is it like a Brit? Can a signed agreement in certain times be nullified? Let's say we don't keep the terms of the agreement. It could be nullified. Is that the same thing about a Brit? A bet. Is a Brit a two-sided agreement? This is a very essential matter to understand. Is a Brit a two-sided agreement? Are there two sides to the Brit? Or is the Brit only one-sided? It's only one-sided. I mean this. A Brit, starting now, between God and Noach and mankind is totally one-sided. Only one side is making an obligation. And who is that? Hashem. Hashem is obligating himself never ever to bring again a Mabul onto earth that will destroy all of civilization and mankind. Now, if God is behind the Brit, it's certainly giving it validity. And it's certainly making it as viable as possible. Okay? Just like the statutes of heaven and earth are made by God, and they continue with the laws of gravity to sustain itself, so too, if God says, I'm making a Brit, I will never bring a Mabul, it's totally just like the laws of nature. Okay? The Brit is not like a promise that he's not going to punish you. There could be punishments coming up. There could be some things that are devastating, but not a total destruction. Okay? It could very well be they're going to be flash flood. By the way, tomorrow for our trip, we have to be careful and know the weather report that it's not going to rain in the mountain area tomorrow morning. Do you know why?
Slippy.
Flood.
Because if we're on one side of the, what is it called? The thresh, where waters go down one area, the other, what is it called in English? No,
Stream.
No, let's say we're this is the peak of the mountain area. Whatever drops to this side goes down to the sea. Whatever drops on this side goes down to the Judean desert. Watershed. Is that the word? Is that the word? Is that the proper word? Thank you. So if there's rain tomorrow, then we're not allowed to even go into these wadis and hike there because there could be flash floods. So we're careful to know exactly what the weather is about. So a Brit is, there could be punishment that God will bring flash floods, hurricanes, tsunamis, and other things in certain areas of the world where many people, God forbid, might lose their lives. But total destruction to all of civilization in one shot will never ever be. And that's the importance of a Brit. It's coming from God. And what God says is totally eternal. Now some talk about the symbolic matter of the keshet, that the keshet, the rainbow, is the sign of the Brit. Some say, explain, what is the form, the figure of a keshet? A bow, right? Some say that if, let's say, anciently, historically, people would fight with a bow and arrow, right? And always, the curve of the bow will always be towards your enemy. Am I right? Is that true? Is that a true statement? That the curve of the bow will always be to the enemy. And when there would be someone that would surrender in wars, I don't know if you saw this in movies, what would they do to their bow? Turn it around towards themselves. Okay, and historically, when someone wanted to give up and not continue the war, he would turn it around, and that would be a sign that he's not fighting anymore. So maybe they say that the keshet that appears in the clouds is like, don't think that God is at war with mankind. Okay? God is not the enemy of mankind. All matters of God's purpose in the world is really to do goodness in the world. There's some that explain that maybe is the reason for the keshet. And some others explain that we don't even know the reason itself. But the fact that God is making into a Brit makes it as strong as possible. And some of you have learned that there's a realm of blessings that we recite upon seeing special things. We know that vision, and when we visibly see something, it has an impact on our soul. We can see positive things, and God forbid, we have to stay away from looking at negative things. We have to put filters on our cell phones and make sure we don't see the wrong things. It has a terrible impression on the soul. For instance, if you're driving in the lowland area, and once every 30 days you see the Yama Tichon, the Yama Gadol, there's a special blessing. Wow. You see the immensity. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam she'asa et hayam gadol. By the way, the nickname of the Mediterranean is called the Yam Gadol. Give me a break. There are a lot of seas that are much larger than the Mediterranean. So why is it nicknamed Yam Gadol? Did you think about that, Thomas? Do you have an answer? Why is it called a Yam Gadol, David? Oh, very nice. Whatever is related to the land of Israel is gadol, meaning in value. Not necessarily in density and length and width. Whatever is gadol is important, has value. Right? We know that the western border of the land of Israel is the Yam Gadol, also called Yam Tichon. So when we see rain and we see the Yam Gadol once every 30 days, we recite the bracha and allow it to have an impact to see the greatness of God. So too, anyone see lightning the other day, 2 days ago in the sky? We see this electrical matter. What is that? When two clouds are colliding with one another, it causes an electrical matter. I think is that not what lightning is in the sky? When I think two clouds collide, I think with one another or something of that nature. There's electricity in the air, and we see the lightning. And we can recite the famous blessing, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam oseh ma'aseh bereshit. God who does the act of creation, okay, and lightning, and so on and so forth. So there are blessings of seeing. So too, there's a special blessing, you can see it in your siddur, when we see the rainbow, which Chazal say, it's not the best sign. The rainbow is out there as a sign that he's not going to bring the Mabul onto us. So people will say, it's not good to start publicizing. Did you see the rainbow? Go make a bracha now. You saw it's enough. Because it's not such a positive sign. Because, God forbid, God could have brought destruction to the world, but he didn't. Instead, what did he put up in the sky? The keshet, the rainbow. So there's a special blessing. It's a longer blessing. You can find it in your siddur. May we have a great winter with